Spider-Man was directed by Sam Raimi. It was written by David Koepp, and it stars Tobey Maguire, Kirsten Dunst, James Franco, Willem Dafoe, Rosemary Harris, Cliff Roberts. So many talented people. Seriously, talented actors. I don't care what you say about Tobey Maguire. Don't care. Anyways, so what's the plot of this film? Well, Spider-Man follows Peter Parker. He is your average, ordinary, nerdy, geeky kid in high school whose only friend is James Franco, who plays Harry Osborn. Peter, along with their class, is on a field trip in the beginning of the film. Peter is suddenly bit by a enhanced spider and gains cool abilities. He can climb walls, he has super strength, he has like a sixth sense type thing where he could see a punch coming his way. It's cool stuff. But he learns that he shouldn't use these powers for wrong reasons and decides to become Spider-Man. But since this is a superhero film, it's gotta have a main villain, right? Right? Well, I mean, we all count Joker as a superhero film in that genre. That film doesn't really have a villain. Now, does it? Or maybe it does. Nah, there's villains as him. Anyways, Willem Dafoe plays Norman Osborn, who is having a hard time create a serum that turns people into cool super soldier people. We have big problems with trying to figure out how to make it work. Like taking it back to formula. Sorry, I shouldn't have done that reference. Anyways, he does an experiment which then turns him into the film's main villain, the Green Goblin. And there is the plot to Spider-Man. Alright, now there's a logical reason to why I'm doing this review. And it's this. Spider-Man No Way Home comes out this December. And I thought it'd be a good time to do a review of all the Spider-Man films, which I originally intended to do back when Far From Home was coming out. And I didn't do it. Well, I did like one video. I think I deleted it. It wasn't that great. It was pretty bad actually, but whatever. But now I'm discussing it. But I can't really talk about this film yet because I gotta talk about the history. This is the history of Spider-Man becoming a movie, if that makes any sense at all. So the history of Spider-Man becoming a film kind of starts with James Cameron. James Cameron is well known for making my favorite franchise of all time, The Terminator. What is The Terminator? Well, it's a story about a cybernetic organism going to the past to kill a woman who's going to give birth to the savior to the resistance of the planet. But to stop that, the resistance decided to send one of their own through time back then, and they fall in love. It's basically a romantic action sci-fi movie, and it's glorious. James Cameron was originally in development on doing a X-Men film. Well, Stan Lee brought up Spider-Man, and it went out the window. X-Men was out the window. He wanted to do Spider-Man, and his idea was, well, you can look it up yourself. Just put in James Cameron Spider-Man. There's a great video on YouTube. Forgot the channel name. But go to them, and then you can watch the video and see what it is. And some of this is based on that. So essentially, the Spider-Man rights and film went from studio to studio, went from person to person. And so these two producers were given the rights to do Spider-Man, except they didn't know what Spider-Man was, and they didn't care to know what it was. So what did they do? Well, they decided to do this. They came up with an idea of what they thought Spider-Man was. What was that? Well, I'll tell you what it was. They thought Spider-Man was, get this, their idea for Spider-Man was a red colored themed costume ninja who can suddenly turn into a 8-armed tarantula Spider-Man. You get it? Okay. So there was a time where Spider-Man suddenly grew extra arms. Later, he turned into a literal man-spider. If you grew up on the 90s Spider-Man cartoon called Spider-Man the Animated Series, they have an episode on that. Go watch that. It's a fantastic episode. By the way, watch the entire show. If you have Disney Plus, watch it. Okay, anyways. Okay, so they had a very troubled production. With that idea that they got Texas Chainsaw Massacre director Tobe Hooper to do the film. But when they got some screenwriters to come in, they actually knew what Spider-Man was. They told the producers, I'm sorry, this is Spider-Man. He's a superhero, not what you think he is. And so, they changed it. The writers wrote a version of the film that was what it was. Hooper was not interested, so he left. They got directors. Directors left. They got writers. Even fucking spec scripts were brought in. What's a spec script? Well, I'm glad you didn't ask, but whatever. A spec script is this. Basically, it's a screenplay that someone writes, goes to a studio, gives it to them, and just says, do whatever the fuck you want with it, and they leave. That is a spec script. That makes any sense. That is a spec script. A spec script is literally just a script that someone might be interested in, but in reality, not really. No one's gonna care for it. They're not gonna make it, but whatever. Spec scripts were written for a Spider-Man feature. Who would have thought of that? But anyways. They had very troubled productions. Scripts that were, I believe, aiming for a big budget. Stan Lee actually originally, with the great mastermind of low budget films, Roger Corman, look it up. I can't explain everything for you. He is a guy that was more on the lens of, yeah, no, I don't want to do that. We're going to give it this. Stan the budget, this, like what this room is. That makes any sense. But anyways, point is, Stan Lee envisioned a expansive production. Like any person out there, being given the idea to see a character that they made on the big screen, he basically wanted what Donner's Superman had, where they gave Superman a big production. Everyone was wanting to make that movie, and it was fantastic. That is what Stan Lee wanted. He wanted a big, expansive production that was there to make a Spider-Man film last. Corman didn't believe that. Eventually, from scripts being slashed, the budget being changed from big budget to low budget, the film fell through. It never went anywhere until James Cameron. James Cameron came in and he wrote a treatment. What's a treatment? Well, before you can write a film, you gotta write a treatment and show it to a studio what you're capable of doing. What the film is gonna be. So what was Cameron's idea? Basically, it was a screenplay, just without the interior stuff. It was more in cut to, and it was more of kind of like reading a book, but it was more like a screenplay. And you can find it online. I swear to God, you can find it online. You can read the whole thing, and a lot of what they put in there was put in the Spider-Man. Now, this treatment was actually the only thing that was there for most of the production. So was the script also written? You can also find find it online, but it's very silly and it's just not good. And so that treatment was all they had. So when Sony Studios came in and got the rights to Spider-Man, that treatment was all they had. And when David Koepp was brought on board to write the film, they basically told him, just take this treatment and make some improvements. I don't know, revise it but not revise it. Who cares? And that's what Koepp did. A lot of the earlier scripts to the film were very cheesy. I did say that. Cheesy. But that's not the point. The point is, this film had a very troubled production, and the idea of James Cameron's Spider-Man fell through. It fell through. Didn't go anywhere. Sony got the rights. Cameron was not interested. He was very confident in the film. He even said in like interviews on how confident he was in the film. I believe he said that if Fox had just spent a few more, they would have had a franchise on their hands. He's not wrong. Fox would have. Imagine that. Spider-Man versus X-Men. Makes you wonder, would we have had a situation like Spider-Man 3 and The Amazing Spider-Man 2? Oh, but we'll get to those two films eventually. Okay, well that concludes the... Oh, wait, no. There's one more bit to think. So, when Sony got the rights to do Spider-Man, they were getting directors. They interviewed Sam Raimi, who made the film, and the fantastic David fucking Fincher. My favorite director is David Fincher. Imagine that, a David Fincher Spider-Man film. Now, it has been stated that his Spider-Man film would have began off with a music video detailing the origin story. Fincher stated that he just wouldn't do, an origin story, which makes sense. Fincher just isn't that type of guy. But I think that he stated that, but it was also stated that the music video was gonna end on the death of Gwen Stacy. Can you imagine that for the first Spider-Man film? You sit in the theater, you see the Sony stuff go on screen, then all of a sudden a music video starts. Everyone's like, the hell are we watching? And then it's Spider-Man. And then it goes to the death of Gwen Stacy. And it was stated from there that the film was going to be about him accepting that he's a freak. Even though at that point when he meets Gwen, he would have already accepted that, because that's how it was in the comics. He believed he was a freak, but soon accepted it and realized what he was meant to be. But anyways, but Sam Raimi was given the job because he showed off how big of a fan he was, and he just seemed like the logical choice. Therefore, he was given the job. Oh well. But now we could talk about the movie. Now I'm gonna be honest with you. This film is fantastic. What I'm about to say may offend a few people. This film is better than anything Marvel Studios has done. Let me explain why. Marvel Studios has a little thing where they overuse quips. And, quips are fine. That's fine. You can use quips, doesn't matter. The thing is that when you use them too much in every film, at the end of every trailer, it gets a little old. No offense, but sure. I'm telling the complete truth. But the film itself and what they made is better than anything out there. It just is. It's better than what's there. And it just has all the story beats right. Now, this film had a very troubled idea. It's kind of like doing Superman and Batman for the first time. Back in '89, which we're going to talk about Batman, hopefully, soon. Back in '89, Batman was only known as being silly. People knew him as, I have my shark repellent, that kind of stuff. So when Batman 89 came on the scene and showed that, no, Batman could be for adults, not just kids, it actually wowed people because they realized that, oh, wait a minute, maybe this silly thing that we once thought was silly might actually work. And it wowed people. So this film has a big task. For one, it's a filmmaker who loves Spider-Man and wants to make the best Spider-Man film he can. They clearly worked on the script as long as they could. As I said, the earlier drafts were not great. In fact, a few drafts ended on with Peter and Mary Jane devouring their faces. This is a real thing David Kep wrote. Before that, he says, "Baby, I'm Spider-Man." What? Who wrote that? Oh, David Kep. Yeah, the dude's fallen off the board. No offense, Kep, but you have. Thing is that when it comes to character Spider-Man, this is kind of a hard character to sell to people. Including in the 60s, when Stan Lee originally gave the idea, they thought he was crazy. His publisher said, "I'm not doing that. No one likes spiders. Besides, teenagers are sidekicks." And it's like, but okay, never mind then. But when Amazing Fantasy was coming to an end, Stan thought, you know what, I'm gonna throw in Spider-Man. Who cares? We're coming to an end. They clearly didn't care. And then next thing you know, Spider-Man's the biggest thing out there. And then they were like, hey, maybe we should do like a full-on series. But whatever, you can find that on your own. But the thing is that this is a hard film to sell to people. Because to a lot of people, Spider-Man seems kind of silly. Teenage kid, bit by a spider, spins web, wears a costume, great power comes great responsibility. Sounds a little silly. 60s, yeah, kind of silly, but it works. It works, believe me. But I do have some problems with this film. For one, even though I love Maguire in the role, I do feel like there are some instances where he hasn't really given the best performance as he could. But you can definitely tell that he's bringing his all to the film. He definitely sells the down on the luck guy dealing with the problems of being Spider-Man and his responsibilities. He sells that. But there are also some things about the comic version. In the comics, Spider-Man is not that. In fact, Peter Parker actually takes a lot from his Spider-Man persona. Literally, he's a trickster. When we get to the TASM films, I will explain further on things. And, that kind of thing. But I thought they could have done, like, what was in the comics. In the comics, the fact of Spider-Man it's sort of, how do I put this? It basically, it very much was something that took over his life. He's always being blamed for things, and this film does that. And I love how this film has, like, when Spider-Man shows up, people are like, oh, he's so cool, and he does good things. But then, that starts to change. And Peter starts to realize what the life of Spider-Man has on his life. And I love how this film kind of feels like a romance film in some aspects. You can definitely tell that Raimi wanted to do a film about Peter liking MJ, but she and him can't be together because she's with Franco, even though they make the most logical thing. So the only way for him to get to be with her is with being Spider-Man, getting the kiss. Just a lot of beautiful things in this film. By the way, Sam Raimi brought his all of this film. Now, yes, the CGI is not great. I will agree. But you need to remember, this was the first Spider-Man film. They tried to make one, didn't work out, and now it's finally made. I bet you Sony wasn't going to give them $1 trillion to make the best CG. we don't get to that until like TASM. In the TASM films, they realize that, oh, Spider-Man's popular. Here's this much money. Make some cool effects. Make the best film we can. But that's the thing, though. Sam Raimi clearly brought his all of this film. David Koepp wrote the best screenplay he could. Probably doing thousands of revisions. I guarantee you. And he just made an excellent film. They all did. McGuire, Kirsten, everyone's there. Everyone is doing a good job. Even Willem Dafoe. Willem Dafoe is fantastic in this film. I gotta say it. He's great in this movie. His performance is just insanity, and I love it. In fact, Willem Dafoe wanted this role. And he begged Sam Raimi to do it, and he wouldn't stop to do it. And he didn't need to do this film. He didn't need it to make his career better. He was already having a pretty good film. He did the Boondock Saints. He did a lot of great films out there. So, in reality, him doing this film is kind of like, oh, that's an interesting choice. And he wanted to do this film, and he got it. And he just nails it. Now, yes, his costume. It's horrible. I will agree. I like the helmets. Helmets. I like the helmet, and I like the glider. I think the original versions were much better. But the suit changed because of Dafoe. Dafoe wanted to do a lot of the physicality that he wanted to bring. He did a lot of training for this film. So he clearly wanted to do some stuff. And so they actually had a glider, and he was actually on it, doing this stuff. The DVD I have has the stuff from, because I have the theatrical ones. Yeah, I was one of those kids. Okay. This film means a lot to me, because this film is what made the Spider-Man fan I am. This is the most watched Spider-Man film I've ever seen. McGuire is not my favorite version of the character, but he's my childhood version. In fact, McGuire and Garfield are my childhood ones. I have a thing I want to tell you guys about Spider-Man 3, and that actually means a lot to me. But we'll get to that. Okay. Tom Maguire, yeah, he's just great. Every aspect of this film I love. I love how they made it. I love the colors. I love how it feels like a comic book. I love how Sam Raimi does his Sam Raimi things. I love how just randomly in scenes there'll be like a jump scare from the Green Goblin. It's just like, oh, what? You just dig it. And people did. People liked this film. People connected to it. There's a reason why these films are well remembered. And the reason why I'm doing this review. So I am glad. So I've already said that I'm going to review all Spider-Man films. But basically this is a Spider-Man-Athon. Done correctly. And the reason why I'm doing that is because in Spider-Man No Way Home, get this, we're supposed to be getting Tom Holland, Willem Dafoe, Alfred Molina, Sandman, forgot the actor's name, Risa Fans, Jamie Foxx, and Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield. That's right, baby, we're getting Spider-Verse. Now, originally, I opposed this idea. I thought it was stupid, and I just didn't really think that's what Spider-Man 3 should have been. But they're doing it, and I'm down for it. I still don't agree with it, but whatever. It's in the past. I accept it being that. But I'm excited for No Way Home. I'm excited. Now, I will say this. This wasn't really much of a review. this is kind of a hard film to talk about because there's a lot of history that goes along with this film. And I could talk about every aspect of it, but that means we just be here for hours. We just would. And so I wanted to give you the things that I felt like needed to be spoken about. As I just said, everyone brought their all, the cool things about this movie. This film means a lot to me. And I can't wait to bring you Spider-Man 2. That review is going to be great, and I can't wait to review every one of these films. Now, I'm going to be going in the order of this. I'm going in the order of release. So, we're going by release. So, when I get to Homecoming, I'm not going to immediately go with the Far From Home. I'm going to Spider-Verse. Far From Home will be the final review. And I have some things to say about that movie. Believe me. This series is going to get negative. It's going to get positive. But, oh well. So what would I rate Spider-Man 2002? Or just Spider-Man, whatever. I'll give it an A-. Again, there are slight things in this film that don't, whatever. Yeah, this film's cheesy, but that's the charm. I mean, go read 60s Spider-Man comics. That stuff is cheesy as hell. Anyways, I'll see you guys in Spider-Man 2. Which will be sometime. It'll be soon, because literally the film comes out next month, so I gotta get these reviews out quick. But, when I get to Far From Home, I'm gonna wait a little bit. And then after that, I gotta get started on a Batman-Athon. Cause, we'll get to that. But, believe me, when we get to the 89 review, you'll see what I mean. Anyways, you know who I am. I know who you are. I think. But oh well. I'll see you guys next time.